Hey guys, welcome back, and I've got a head-to-head today, which hopefully will be quite interesting. Bit of a price mismatch, but on the left we have the Poco F2 Pro with the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 chipset, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 650, the UFS 3.1 file system, and 6GB of RAM, which cost me £409. And on the right we have the OnePlus 8 Pro with the Snapdragon 855, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 650 GPU, the UFS 3.0 file system, and 8GB of RAM, costing £800. So a bit of a price mismatch, but actually spec-wise, very similar, very even. So let's see how they get on. Let's kick off with the fingerprint sensor test. And I think, to be honest, quite surprising, the Poco F2 Pro appears to be the quicker fingerprint sensor. Only surprising because I felt it was a little slow in my usage, but actually it's quicker than the OnePlus 8 Pro. So fingerprint sensor test goes to the Poco F2 Pro. We've cleared the memory or the RAM of both devices, and we're going straight into the Angry Birds 2 opening test. They're both pretty quick, but the Poco F2 Pro is there first. Again, I will clear the memories of them both, and we'll just run once more to either verify or to contest the initial result. But the Poco F2 Pro comes through to go 2-0 up with the Angry Birds 2 opening test. We move on to what I would imagine the Poco F2 Pro is the favourite for, the Geekbench 5 test. Now, there's not a lot to see when this is running, so we're going to skip ahead. The Poco F2 is going to finish first and comes in with a very respectable 3,355 for the multi-core score. The OnePlus 8 Pro just finishing its test off and is going to come in with 3,073. So reasonably easy win for the Poco F2 Pro, perhaps to be expected with the newer chipset and the newer file system for that matter. We're now going to head outside for the GPS test, where I clear both of the AGPS states. I'll wipe the apps. In fact, let's just close all the apps. And then we're going to go back into the GPS test, hopefully at the same time, and see which, well, the OnePlus 8 Pro locked on very quickly there. The Poco F2 Pro can see 48 satellites, but it's not been able to get an actual lock just yet. It's not the best of spectator sports, but I mean, clearly the OnePlus 8 Pro is the winner on the GPS test. So interestingly, possibly the Poco is louder, but the OnePlus 8 Pro to me does sound better. Just a better all-round audio. We'll switch over to podcast to see how that sounds.
Essentially gave organizations like GCHQ and the NSA a free rein to go do mass surveillance. It essentially gave organizations like GCHQ and the NSA a free rein to go do mass surveillance.
That Google and other social network providers and search engine providers are being overwhelmed, quite frankly, with inquiries.
I'm never quite sure how it's going to sound on the video, but to me, the OnePlus 8 Pro clearly does have the better speaker setup. We're going to move on to the screen brightness test. So I turn off the sort of adaptive brightness on both of the devices and crank the brightness right the way up. I've even put sunlight mode on the Poco F2. I'm not sure if that's going to help or not. Then I bring in my light meter, and we see the Poco F2 actually just peaked over 800 there, 803, which is very bright, especially for a sort of a mid-range device. Normally they suffer on screen brightness. The OnePlus 8 Pro lingering around the 740. So there's not a great deal between them, but the Poco F2 Pro does have the brighter screen and takes the screen brightness test. We're nearing the end now, only one test to go, and it is the Chrome browser test. So I'm going to clear data on both of the devices, and then we're going to go to 3 different websites and see how they bear up in their loading speeds. So we'll start off with everybody's favourite website, obviously, that everyone goes to day after day, Android UK. Very close, but I think the Poco F2 Pro got there quicker. Let's go to the second website, which can be the BBC website. Yep, definitely in that case the Poco F2 Pro. So I think it's going to take the browser test unless something very strange happens on the final one, going for The Verge. Note once again, I mean, there's not a lot between them. You wouldn't, if you're there on a Poco F2 Pro and your mate's on a OnePlus 8 Pro, you're not sort of teasing him for how long it's taking him to load a web page, because it's, split seconds behind the Poco F2 Pro. But it does win the browser test to make it a 5-2 victory, which is interesting considering that the Poco F2 Pro is half the price of the OnePlus 8 Pro. Now, people often then say, well, what about batteries, what about camera, which I can't really test in a short time like this, but I can tell you the Poco F2 Pro does have the better battery, but the OnePlus 8 Pro does have the better camera. So they kind of balance each other out. You could also argue about software and other things like that, but this is just really for me to give you a bit of information. If you were trying to decide what phone you wanted next, you've got some information to base things off from this video. Hopefully you found it informative. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But for now, my name's Andy, and I will catch you all again soon.